Okay, guys, I hope everybody is doing all right. We're going to talk about laws of exponents, and in particular, the product rule and then the power rule. So that's where we're going to start here, product rule and power rule. And we're going to look at the product rule first. And let's go ahead and set this up with 2 squared times 2 squared. It should be on your notes page. So when we do this, when we do 2 squared times 2 squared, there is a rule we need to follow. We have exponents, and remember the exponents, the little numbers above your base terms, squares, cubed, those are the ones we're most used to seeing, the common ones. Those are your exponents. So in this particular setup, there's some rules that we have to follow when we're working with exponents. And one of them, the intro that we're going to talk about, is the product rule. So what's the product rule? Well, as it applies here to our 2 squared times 2 squared, the product rule says if two factors are being multiplied together and they have the same base, we can add the exponents. So in this scenario, we're multiplying the two factors. They have the same base value, and that's what I'm underlining there, the 2 and the 2. So if they have the same base, all we really need to do is add the exponents to get the answer. And let me kind of break this down and show you what this is saying. So if we're multiplying 2 squared times 2 squared, I'm basically setting this up as 2 times itself times, put some parentheses in here, 2 times itself. That's what we do when we square a number. Okay, well basically, how many 2's do we have in this setup? I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4. So according to the product rule, if we have the same base and we just add our exponents, so if I do that 2 plus 2, you guys know I'll get 4. So basically, I keep the base as a 2, and it's 2 to the 4th power. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty basic when you have the product rule. As long as you have the same base, you just add the exponents. Let's try another one right over here. 4 cubed times 4 to the 4th power. What we're really saying here is 4 times 4 times 4 is our 4 cubed. And then multiplying that times 4 to the 4th power, which would be 4. 4 is across right over there. Clean that one up a little bit. So basically, how many 4's do we have? You guys can count them, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And of course, if we follow our rule, we take 3 and 4, our product rule. You add 3 and 4, you're going to get 7. So we keep our base value the same, and it would be 4 to the power of 7. And this is our product rule. So pretty basic, same base, add the exponents together. Not too terribly complicated. Okay, so let's look at the power rule then. So this is the second one we're going to look at. And this has to do with exponents raised to another power. So we've got this first example, x squared. You'll see it's in parentheses, and then it's got that cubed on the outside. So this is like x squared to the 3rd power, x squared cubed. All right, so here's what the power rule says, and make sure you have this definition down. If you have an exponent raised to another power, you can multiply the exponents together. So in this case, you see we already had an exponent. We had the x squared, and then we're raising it to another exponent outside of the parentheses. When you see this, instead of adding, you're going to multiply the exponents together. All right, so what does that look like? Well, let me go ahead and knock this out. So basically, this is like x squared to the 3rd power, which really looks like x squared times x squared times x squared to the 3rd power. And you'll see we've got, we look at our exponents, we've got a 2, 2, and 2. Well, that makes 6 basically if you add them together. But if we follow our rule and we multiply initially, we had a 2 and a 3 right up here at the top. 2 times 3 equals 6. And so we just have an x to the 6th power. It's not a clean 6. There's a clean 6 for you. So this is our power rule. Pretty basic with a variable with just an x put in. Okay, so we have the power raised to another power, or exponent I should say raised to another power. We multiply it in that setup. All right, let's try this one. So another similar setup. This time I have an a. This is a squared to the 5th power. So real quick, this is just like a squared and to the fifth power, so I'd have 1, 2, 3, I'll skip down to another row, 4, 5, a squared to the fifth power, and you multiply. You have the power that you're raised to. 5 times 2 is 10, and you'll see that works out here because I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in my exponent, and so that would be a to the 10th power. All right, well, let's mix this up a little bit. So let's say then, do a little squiggly down there, and you got a little space on your paper. So now let's add a base term in this, and let's change this up a little bit. So let's say instead of just the a squared to the fifth power, let's put a base term in there. So let me go with 2a squared, and let's raise that to the fifth power. So make sure you write that down. I don't think that's on your paper. Make sure you have it. And we're going to follow the same rule, but we have to do something. We have to make sure we pay attention to this base term right over here. So when we have the exponent on the outside, we've got to apply the exponent to the base term and the variables inside of our whole term, I should say. So the 5 is going to get applied to the 2, and then the 5 is going to get multiplied times that squared exponent. So what does that look like? Well, as I write this down, it's basically like, if I wrote it out in long form, it's basically like 2a squared 5 times, 2a squared, 2a squared. A little messy, but I think y'all are getting the gist. 2a squared, fix that one, and then 2a squared. So with our exponent term, you see here we have our 10 again, but I also have 2, which I'll underline in blue. I've got 2 on here 5 times, so it basically makes 2 to the fifth power a to the 10th power. So basically, if I went back to the beginning and just put the 5 with the 2, 2 to the fifth power, and then multiply 5 times the 2 there, 5 times 2 is 10, you would get this answer when you do your powers, your power rule. All right, let's try another one right over here. So 3x cubed to the fourth power. All right, well, we're just going to apply this again. The 4 has got to go with the 3, and the 4 has got to be multiplied times that cubed exponent. So in short form, this is going to be 3. This first setup right over here, we do 3 into the 3 to the fourth power. We should get 3 to the fourth power there. And then we have our x to the what? Well, we just do 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. And this will turn and give us a pretty quick answer of 3 to the fourth, x to the 12th. I could write it out in long form here, but I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit and just kind of showing you, once you understand how that works, multiplying this is pretty basic. So you'll see them like this. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. You'll see one like this too, where we add another variable in there. So we have a 3, an x, the y cubed, and the 2. So the 2 has got to go to all the values inside. So basically, we'd have the 2 going with the exponent 3 there. So that would give you 3 squared. And then the 2 has got to go with this x. So catch that right there. So basically, that's x squared. So I have 3 squared x squared. And then what would happen here when we go the 2 with the 3? Well, we do 2 times 3, which is 6. So I'd have y to the 6th power. So making sure you apply that exponent with your power rule to the variables, the base, all the values inside of the term to make sure you get an accurate answer here, okay? All right, so let's wrap it up real quick. So we're talking about product rule and power rule. So on the left, and you've got this on your sheet, remember the product rule. If you've got the same term, pretty straightforward, a 2 and a 2, all you got to do is add them together, okay? So that was just basically 2 squared, which is 2 times 2 here. And then on the other side, 2 to the fourth power, which would be like 2 times 2 times 2 times, if I can fit it in, messy, got it, times 2. How many 2's do I have? Well, I've got 6, and if you add them up, you get the same thing. So it would be 2. 2 plus 4 is 6, 2 to the 6th power. That is your product rule, And remember, the power rule changes a little bit. So the power rule is when you have kind of your double exponent look here, okay? An exponent that's raised to another power. So remember to apply it to all the values inside. This would be 3x cubed. Basically, the cube will go into the 3 first, which makes this 3 3 cubed, I should say. Almost got ahead of myself there. So 3 cubed, and then we'll look at the x, and we got to do the 3 times the 3. Remember, you multiply in the power rule. Don't add, multiply in the power rule. So that would get you x. 3 times 3 is 9, and that would be my answer. Applying here rules of exponents, product rule, and power rule.